Looking forward to today's conversation. For a lot of you, this will be a continuation of a conversation we already started over the summer during the focus groups. And I want to thank everyone who participated in those focus groups. You were really generous with your time, and it was a hugely successful and helpful exercise for me, so thank you. And for everyone else who didn't have a chance to participate this summer, this will be an opportunity to jump into this kind of ongoing conversation about community needs and library resources. So I'm hoping today will be a dialogue. I'm going to be talking about, or sharing, I should say, what I heard during these Tell Me Tour focus groups, and you will all have an opportunity to let me know if I heard correctly, or if you have anything to add, or if there's anything important missing. So, why did we have the Tell Me Tour? There were really two reasons. The first was that I wanted to get to know Middlebury. I think a lot of you know I moved here from New York last year, and I realized very quickly that New York City and Vermont are super different. So I wanted to meet all of you, and I wanted you to have a chance to meet me as well, and just know that I'm available and around, and love talking about libraries. So if you ever want to talk about libraries, just know that I'm here for that. The other reason we did this was because the trustees and I wanted to make sure that the library's mission and direction and where we're going is sort of in lockstep with the community's values and goals. I want, I want Ilsley to be a reflection of the community, and to make sure that was happening, we had to hear directly from all of you. So these focus groups were facilitated by Barbara Doyle-Wilch. Barbara is a library consultant and the former dean of libraries at Middlebury College. And she's also a resident here in Middlebury and has been for many years. So she was kind of perfectly suited to lead these conversations. My role was to sit quietly and listen and observe and learn from all of you. Barbara asked 3 sort of guiding questions to structure these focus groups. We asked, what kind of community do you want to live in? Who are we, and how do we want to present ourselves collectively? What goals and aspirations do you have for Middlebury? In 5 or 10 years, what do we want to have improved on or worked towards? And then finally we asked, do you have any specific input or advice for me, or is there anything you really want me to know about the library? And these questions were based on a format for community conversations developed by the Harwood Institute. And the Harwood Institute is just a nonprofit that helps libraries engage their communities and do strategic planning. So we asked these questions, we had these conversations, and then at the end, Barbara and I went through all of our notes and sort of identified the themes that were voiced most often, and that's what I'm going to be sharing with you today. So these are the six important community qualities that came up most often. Participants sort of fell along a spectrum of how fully they thought Middlebury embodied these qualities and characteristics. So for example, pretty much everyone agreed we want to live in a community that is welcoming and open and inclusive and friendly. Some people felt that Middlebury was all of those things and really were excited about that. And some people had anecdotes where they sort of felt that we could work on that more. So I'll give everyone a minute to read through this and sort of take it in. And then I'd love to hear if you think this is accurate, if it rings true to you, if there's anything important that you want me to add. And if you came in late and you need a chair, we can pull more out. So what does everyone think? Did I leave out anything important if you participated in these focus groups? Or is there another quality that you would like me to add to the list or to keep in mind?
These are not rank ordered.
They're not rank ordered, no. No.
Well, I think it's interesting, Dana, that there was that one of the principal points had nothing to do with economic opportunity. Did you hear talk about that?
we heard talk about that, and that came up more sort of in the second part of the focus groups when we talked about aspirations for the community. Yeah.
You know, I think one of the interesting things about this list, and we talked about it a lot, is, and Dana kind of touched on this, but a community that honors diversity, but we're not quite there yet. It's a quality that everybody aspires to, but we have a ways to go. And I think if you look at all of those, there are a lot of pieces involved with them, some of which we're lacking and some of which we have in abundance.
Victoria.
I remember a comment of the small human scale experience.
It's very Vermont, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's very middle grade.
Right.
Yeah, I remember that coming up as well. All right, well, we will move on. And if anyone has anything else to say about this, we'll have time at the end that you can give comments. All right, so this was sort of the bulk of the focus groups, identifying these community aspirations, what we want to work towards together. There were lots of community aspirations. These were the 5 that were voiced the most frequently, so that's what we're going to focus on today. But again, if you think that something is missing, you can of course let me know. Rather than responding to all of these all together like we just did, I'm going to go through each one individually. I'll give a little bit of background on what I heard in the focus groups. I'm going to give 3 or 4 actions that the library can take to support these aspirations. And then we'll have a few minutes of feedback from everyone. Okay, so how can the library help build a vibrant downtown? On the left-hand side of the slides, there's going to be the aspiration. On the right-hand side, there'll be a couple actions that the library can take. And then there's a couple blank spaces at the bottom, and that's because this isn't a static list. It can change, we can add to it. Today's really a brainstorm, so even though I won't be typing onto this list while we're having the conversation, we're recording and taking notes, and I'll add to it later. Okay, so vibrancy. People in these focus groups talked about wanting to have a lot to do downtown, lots of opportunities for intellectual engagement, lectures, exhibits, concerts, theater. They talked about having a really busy downtown, lots of people, lots of energy. We talked about concern over stores that had closed recently and the importance of supporting local vendors, especially during downtown construction. Someone said, if you're visiting Middlebury and you're just walking down Main Street, where do you go to get information about the town? Our Welcome Center is on Court Street, so what is the jumping off point or the gateway to the community right on Main Street? So I think Ilsley can do a lot to contribute to this vibrancy. We have a lot of programs that fulfill this sort of cultural activities downtown, and we can continue doing that. We also, I think, anchor the downtown in a lot of ways. Last year we had 168,000 visitors at the library. It's a lot of people coming in to our Main Street from the surrounding area as well as from Middlebury. That's something that I think we can build on. One way I'm thinking about doing that is trying to become more accessible to non-residents and try and increase the number of non-residents we have coming in to use the library, and by extension coming into Middlebury downtown center and hopefully patronizing our local vendors. So what does this ring true? Is this an aspiration that we have for the community? Are there specific ways that you want to see the library supporting a vibrant downtown that I haven't listed?
Just to add, the non-residents, I'm not sure the relationship with the outlying towns and how you will work that in, because I live in Weybridge, and I do read the Addison, but for some reason I missed all knowledge of your focus group, so I didn't attend, which brings me up to the wonderful Front Porch Forum. And I know I've spoken to Catherine LaLiberty about that, because I noticed In Weybridge, we have our own front porch forum, so
Okay.
occasionally I read Middlebury's. But I'm aware that a lot of Middlebury businesses and associations don't bother to put it in the outlying towns. So anything that you advertise in Middlebury Front Porch Forum, it'd be wonderful to put on Weybridge, which is Weybridge, Cornwall, Shoreham, because we don't, you really are our library. And I'm sort of, and I pay to be part of it, but I also, that whole relationship, I'm curious about the outlying towns and how we fit into working with you.
So we can do a better job of letting you know what we have going on here, specifically through Front Porch Forum, and maybe trying to find other avenues to promote our activities.
And
in
even
the
when you're
outlying towns.
thinking of Middlebury or the library, are you thinking of the county, not just Middlebury?
Mhm. Right, are we
That's all.
thinking of ourselves as a hub, and are we acting accordingly to fulfill that part of our mission? Okay.
So I have a question. I agree about the Front Porch Forum and the Addison Independent. But what about people who are neither Front Porch Forum or indie readers? What other forums are there for other community members? Does anybody have any
Or would
answer?
there ever, or is it better for you all for us to pay? Or would there ever be the possibility of the outlying towns
Oh, I
committing
see.
money to you?
Right.
So just the whole relationship of how we fit in.
That's a really interesting conversation, and I would love to have that
Another time,
conversation
but-
as a community, because I think it is something that we have to start thinking about. Is the model we have the most effective one? I know that the trustees have thought and talked about that a little bit, and I think that it'd be great to open that conversation up more in the future. Victoria.
Perhaps, whether it's developing your own list or somehow using the town's email list. Almost every day, there's an announcement about an event or a road closure or whatever, and using that list to reach other people. And I assume people from outside of Middlebury can be on the town email list.
I believe so. There's no
Or
reason they can't
develop
sign
your
up,
own.
right? Yeah. Robert?
I'm wondering if accessible is the right word there.
Mm.
It's not usually used in connection with accessibility for people with disabilities.
Hmm.
That's not what we're talking about there.
That's not what we're talking about
Yeah.
here. I think accessible in terms of promoting what we have, like we were just discussing. Ilsley's part of this home card consortium, so that residents of surrounding towns whose home libraries participate in home card can come and use Ilsley for free. And we haven't really been promoting that, our membership in that, but we could start promoting that more aggressively to let more people in the surrounding towns know that they might be eligible to use some of Ilsley's resources.
I think the statement would be improved if you said more aware, words to that effect, rather than
Okay.
accessible has kind of a specialized meaning these days.
Okay, so
Yeah.
promoting use in the surrounding areas and.
Yes.
Okay.
More inclusive and welcoming to non-residents?
Okay, does that sound good to everyone? Dennis?
I've been mulling on community itself
Mhm.
and then also on cultural. One of the things that struck me moving away from Middlebury, and I used to say, characterize it, one of the virtues I thought of Middlebury, it has no country club. And I moved to other locations that did have country clubs. And one of the things that I liked very much about Middlebury was there's nobody, you're never gonna have a classless society. You have Pache Marx and other people, but there was much more fluidity between people at various economic and cultural levels
Mhm.
I found here than I could find in either of the other two places where I worked after I left Middlebury. And I really missed that. I mean, we would have a picnic at our house, for instance, with my secretaries, and they would come and they'd bring their husband. One of them drove a milk truck. And that was just a natural thing to do. And the reason I bring that up in this context is that you and I talked about that before, and John and I have talked about it too, is that comment that Lady Bird Johnson made when they opened the new library in Austin, Texas. That the library is one of the most democratic places we have in our society. Doesn't cost you anything to walk in a door.
Right.
You
Well,
can-
and I'm so glad that you're bringing this up, because
Yeah.
that's gonna come up again in a big way in, maybe not the next slide, but the one after.
Good, well, I'm always
Yeah.
glad to anticipate.
So you're already ahead of me, so I'm gonna move ahead. Yeah?
Just one word. I think on that list, you should talk about the free meeting spaces in the library.
Okay.
For whether you're 2 people or 20 people. And that we now serve coffee and tea.
And that we what?
Serve coffee and tea.
Yes, coffee and tea available for sale in the lobby upstairs. Thank you, John, for reminding me about that. Shameless plug, but I like it. Okay, so something else we heard a lot was that people wanted more opportunities for gathering together socially, specifically opportunities for intergenerational gathering. One person said, I miss 51 Main. That was a place people of all ages could enjoy, and we need a cornerstone place like that downtown. Someone else used the word hearth, which I really liked. Middlebury, in the sense that Middlebury needs a place that feels like a hearth, that is warm and inviting, and people know they can just go there and connect with others. Someone else said, I would love to join a book club that gives me an opportunity to meet and interact with new people. Most book clubs are self-organized, and you go and hang out with people you already know and you know what they're going to say. But I want a book club that's open to everyone and pulls in a diverse group, and we actually talk about books. So that's definitely something the library can help out with. We plan a lot of programs right now that have a social component to them. But based on this feedback, we can kind of be more intentional in how we plan those programs and emphasize that social component more. We can also, I think, help by making certain parts of the library, like the lobby right upstairs, feel more inviting and feel more like a place where it's comfortable and appropriate to engage in a conversation. People bump into neighbors and friends at Ilsley all the time. I'm sure a lot of you have had that experience in the checkout line or browsing for fiction or something. And so I'm wondering, what can we do to make the library feel like a place that's inviting of those interactions and encourages them, sort of encourages everyone to slow down and have that conversation.
I think older people really still have the fear that we're supposed to really be quiet. But I hear you talking about, at least in public spots, parts of the library, using non-library voices and being friendly and social. And can you talk to that a little bit too?
Yeah, we have quiet areas in the library, and we can probably do a better job. Oh, I forgot I was wearing that. We can probably do a better job of marking clearly where it's expected that you are quiet. It's really on the second floor where we have those small tables in the stacks. That's for quiet study. But down in the lobby, where the checkout desk is the where the new fiction is as well in the original building. You don't have to talk in a library voice in there. It's totally appropriate to have a conversation and express yourself at whatever volume is comfortable. So yeah, maybe just letting people know that is appropriate and making it more clear where you're expected to be quiet and where you're not would encourage people to feel comfortable.
Publicize refreshments. I mean, I didn't know you had coffee and tea. Do people know they can get coffee on a bun or something? They might as
But we aren't selling buns.
We're not at the buns yet, but dare to dream. I would love to get there.
Rather than say where the loud voices could be, if you just notice where the quiet places are.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other ideas? Oh, sorry, go ahead,
Oh,
Catherine.
and Lori is the chair of the Friends, and it's the Friends who
Yes,
funded
thank you.
a coffee program that we now can get. You can get a coffee if you just come by a little Keurig thing at the counter, checkout counter, and go into the coffee space.
Yeah,
And
thank you to the Friends.
Hoping to make that even more obvious with some more signs.
Right. Yeah.
We're planning to make that more obvious.
Yes. Okay, any other feedback on how the library can foster social interaction and intergenerational conversations, activities?
I actually think that those of us who are older really have an inhibition that we were really trounced on by our when we were children and young adults, like the librarians. It was all shh, and we got to overcome that and help the library be really a a raucous place where people enjoy each other. I think that's really important, and then with the silent, quiet spots, they're on there.
Okay, so maybe even like an element of customer service and the staff really going the extra mile to make people feel comfortable and.
The conversation centers, you know, the chairs facing each other.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
They
Many,
stop.
many years ago, I worked for an institution, we built a library, and the president said, the library is the living room of the campus, but it is not the rumpus room.
There we go.
An important distinction, yeah, I like that. Down here is the rumpus room, the games department is the rumpus room. Okay. This came up in a couple of different ways, filling in the gaps for less served parts of our community. We met with a group of teens, which was really fun. They had some really out-of-the-box answers. They were very clear that they wanted a water park as one of their community solutions. But they also let us know that they felt that there weren't that many places for them in Middlebury that they could go, be themselves, have autonomy, and not have to drive to get there or not have to spend money once they are there, and they felt that those spaces were lacking. And for teens we talked to who didn't play sports, they kind of felt, what is there for me? How do I connect with other people after school? What opportunities are there for me to participate? So Ilsley can definitely do more for teens and tweens. We have been doing a lot more over the past 2 years, maybe I would say we've been focusing on it. We have a teen and tween librarian, Catherine LaLiberty, and I know she would be really interested in hearing any specific ideas anyone has on what you'd like to see offered for teens and tweens. They let us know specifically that they wanted their own space in the library, and as a result, we moved their collection to their own specific, albeit very tiny, space. And that's actually worked out wonderfully. The circulation of teen materials is the highest it's ever been. So I mean, that's some nice positive feedback that listening and responding to teens will hopefully continue to really work out well for us.
Tell us where the team's room is so we can notice next time.
So it's where the magazines used to be. It's the little room, when you're looking at the checkout desk, it's to the left of that.
Between the copier and the main desk.
Yeah, that's a better way to put
There you
it.
go.
Thank you, Trisha.
Did you hear that?
With a jolly rug.
Yes,
Yes,
the
very
brightly
cheery.
colored rug.
Very
Yeah.
cheery.
What about programs in conjunction with the teen center that the reg?
Yeah, so Catherine has a good relationship with now the interim director at the teen center. We have done joint programming with them in the past. We will do more in the future. I believe Catherine brings books over there occasionally to make sure they have access to age-appropriate books while they're hanging out. I think something that's really nice is the teen center and Ilsley sort of serve two different teen demographics. There's not a ton of overlap between the teens that hang out here and the teens that hang out there. So I think working together is great because teens here find out about the resources there and teens there find out about the resources here. But we'll keep doing that for sure. We also heard from participants that there wasn't a lot going on for people in their 20s and 30s. One person said in the time that they've lived here, there's been a shift from Middlebury being youth-oriented to being retirement-oriented, and it's much easier to be 75 here than it is to be 25.
Well, speak for yourself.
And another
Yeah,
woman
virtues
whose daughter had recently moved back here, and her daughter's in her early 30s, she said it was just feeling like she was having a hard time connecting and wasn't finding the activities that she had hoped to find. Some participants talked about people who could maybe really benefit from the library's resources but couldn't physically make it in, retirees who maybe aren't as mobile, or migrant farm workers who are living in some of the surrounding towns. So based on all this feedback, the library is hopefully adding a new position next year that's going to focus on outreach and programming for adults. So I would love to hear anyone's ideas, even if they're not in your brain right now. You can always email me later. But any ideas about programs or activities that you would like to see for adults or teens, or other demographics that you think are underserved that you'd like to see the library reaching out to specifically. Dennis.
This is also a reaction to the article of the Addison Independent that John
Mhm.
Flowers wrote. Partly because when we were developing the concerns about the library earlier on and looking into the possible physical changes, one of the issues that was so prominent was the children's library. And
Mhm.
it didn't show up in the Addison Independent. I don't know, maybe you're going to get to that. I keep anticipating what you're about to say, Dana, but I think that for a number of us, and in the earlier focus groups that we did,
Mhm.
that came up over and over and over again, that this children's library is really inadequate, both from an
Mhm.
internal standpoint, from the staffing standpoint, and also from the physical space for the children. And it is a very heavily used, I mean,
Mhm.
when my grandchildren were smaller, I mean, I desperately wanted to bring them to the library.
Mhm.
And so it seems to me that I hope that that will remain as a fairly important direction in the future for the library.
Yeah, well, and yet again, you anticipate, I was gonna get there, but I'm glad you brought it up, because this is a good opportunity for me to say that these focus groups were really a conversation about what kind of library Middlebury needs. And that is preparing us to have a conversation about what kind of building that library needs. So I'm gonna talk briefly about the next steps we might pursue for renovation expansion at the very end of this presentation dialogue that we're having. So we will get there, although this isn't specifically going to be touching on specific details that we might pursue in a renovation expansion. But I think all of these library actions, I mean, one thing we can do is provide adequate spaces for teens. That's what we would love for the library to do, so that does, that would be considered as we think about what kind of library spaces we need in the future.
Since Trish is here, our children's librarian.
Hello, everyone.
And Trish, our children's librarian,
Hi.
my little grandchildren got big, and so I don't get to take them to this wonderful children's library. But when I walk through it, when I look at it, it's really used, it's really attractive, it's lots of fun. I don't see, I know about this, but I don't see anything wrong with it, so I wish you'd speak to that just
Well,
for a minute, Trish.
One interesting thing based on the conversation we were just having about how it's okay for adults to speak in the adult section of the library, feedback when I went and talked to children about what they wanted from the library, I was surprised by how many kids responded that they desperately wanted quiet spaces. That the children's room is so well used and is such a comfortable, welcoming space for the majority, for many, many kids, that it is the flip of the adult. It is hard to find a space to go and have quiet reading or quiet homework, or the sort of quieter spaces are the premium in the children's room. And so that was a surprising response and a little disheartening, because that's sort of the core thought of what libraries are and what we offer. And so to feel like, oh, we're not providing that for our children is hard. It is hard. But on the flip side is that we are a welcoming spot. We are very popular. We are very busy. And people do feel comfortable enough to talk and meet and socialize and make the community connections that are so important, starting at that young age. That is one of the big goals of the children's program, the youth program, is to make sure that kids know that they are recognized and welcomed and valued within our community.
And you do a wonderful job of achieving that mission, I have to say. This is a really good transition to the next community aspiration, but before I move on, anyone else at the library is overlooking that you want to see us focusing on? Okay. All right, so the next aspiration is making Middlebury affordable. We heard from a lot of participants that what we already know, which is Middlebury can be expensive, and that a part of our population struggles with that. Residents talked about the cost of housing, about a lack of childcare. The library might not be able to make Middlebury more affordable, but we can really help residents afford Middlebury more effectively. And I think this is directly to your point, Dennis, one of the biggest ways we can help residents prepare to have financial stability later in life is by continuing to invest in our youth services. Early literacy and early numeracy have been proven many times over to be directly correlated to future academic success. And we know that low socioeconomic children are the most at risk in terms of pre-literacy. And libraries really play a huge role in closing that literacy gap in young people. So we can and we will continue to support early literacy and provide other programs that enrich our children's lives. Someone else said in these focus groups referencing people experiencing homelessness that we don't treat our temporary residents as an integral part of the community, and we should. So the library can be a big part of addressing that. Residents at the Charter House are eligible for library cards here, just like any other resident. Libraries and Ilsley, I think, are often one of the few places that are open and welcoming and comfortable for people experiencing homelessness to be in. We have a good relationship with Charter House, and we can be expanding on the programs that we offer that support their residents. Someone else said, I wish I could buy more toys for my children. It would be great if I could check out toys for my kids at the library. And I think that's great. Building a diverse circulating collection is a wonderful way that we can help people afford experiences in and around Middlebury. I hope everyone has heard about our snowshoes, but if you haven't, I'll put in another plug for them. We just got a bunch of great snowshoes that you can check out and take home and go snowshoeing around. There's still lots of winter left, so you have time to do it. But I think this is a great example of how, that's equipment that maybe is beyond the reach of some families in Middlebury financially, or maybe they just don't have the space to store it. So by building a diverse collection of memberships and equipment and tools, we can really help residents afford experiences that might otherwise be out of reach. So, any questions or ideas about any of this, or other things that you would like to see the library add to our circulating collection? It's kind of, I think we refer to it as a library of things. That's sort of the name that's been given to this trend of moving beyond books and DVDs and checking out shovels and anything. Yes?
Yeah, you just mentioned that some places have a tool library that
Yeah.
picks up their houses.
That's really interesting. Would anyone else be interested in tools? Yeah?
Sure.
Yeah?
Also-
Okay, that's really interesting. Yeah, John?
Yeah, also gardening equipment and cooking equipment.
Cooking
Sometimes you
equipment.
need a big pan or something, or a pot, but you don't want to go out and buy one.
Right, like you have a lot of family coming in or something and you've never hosted Christmas before. Can only imagine. I would have loved to have been able to rent some large cooking stuff this past December.
Did you mention the telescope?
I didn't mention the telescope, but thanks for reminding me. We do have a telescope, we have a projector, we have ukuleles that you can check out, which were actually one of the most circulated items in the children's. Yeah, so maybe more musical instruments would be another good idea for us to add to our collection.
There was a new pass to something that you mentioned.
The Hannaford Career Center Makery.
Right.
So the Makery, for anyone who doesn't know, is open Thursday nights, and you can buy a month-long pass for $20, and you can go in Thursday nights and work in the wood shop or the sewing shop. And there's another shop as well that's open, and more will be opening in the future. But Ilsley has purchased one of these membership cards, so for anyone who can't afford to buy a monthly membership, you can come in and check out the membership and go work on a project at the Makery. And the Wiggle Room, we just got a pass that gets a pretty steep discount for admittance to the Wiggle Room, which is in Williston, and is like a playground, jungle gym, indoor play space for
0 through 5.
0 through 5, thank you.
Yep.
0.
0 through 5.
You can go and wiggle if you're pregnant.
It's a place for the very littles to go and get their own fun.
Yeah. So if and when ideas come to you of things that you would like to be able to check out, please let me know, let the staff know, because If there's use for it, then we'll add it to the collection. We're only really limited by space and budget, but we can certainly add to that collection. Okay, this is the last community aspiration that I'll go over. Participants use the word siloed in two different ways to talk about Middlebury. The first way was to get at this idea that we have a lot of groups and committees and people who are working towards maybe the same issue but aren't necessarily connecting with everyone that they need to. We're not necessarily finding the partners that could help us move forward. One way Ilsley can help with this, I think, is by not contributing to the problem. We can be really hyper aware in planning our resources and services that we're not duplicating something someone else is already doing. And the staff and I can just try to be continuously reaching out, trying to know what's going on with other groups, and being sort of that information hub that can point people in the right direction when they're trying to find someone to work with. The other way that siloed was used, which, by the way, was a new word for me. I didn't know what a silo was when I moved up here, but I do now. Yes. So people use the word siloed also to describe this feeling that Middlebury has some really distinct demographics or groups, and it can be tough to interact with people outside your group. One person said, "This really doesn't feel like a college town. I never interact with college students or see them in my day-to-day life, but I know that they're there and I'd like to see them more." And a couple people said, in reference specifically to a socioeconomic divide, that it's like there are two Middleburys and one doesn't even know the other exists. So I heard that, or a variation of that, multiple times. Someone else said we need to be a hub, not just for Middlebury, but for the surrounding towns, so kind of like what we were talking about earlier. Oh, and this, I really love this. Someone said, "The library is a place where the silos intermingle. People come for different reasons, but they all roll through at some point. And when they do, we have a chance to come together." So, I mean, I think that's beautifully put. I think it's really true. People come for all different reasons. Some people come to do genealogical research. Some people come to use the bathrooms. That's fine. I mean, there's different reasons, and none is better than the other as long as you're, acting within the bounds of our code of conduct. So I think the library can embrace this role and maybe do more to make people feel that they're welcome here no matter their reason for coming, that we really are here for everyone. And I think the more that we sort of foster that feeling, the more diverse the library will be, and everyone benefits from that. So I think we can lean into this role as a space that sort of holds all these different groups, and we can kind of serve as that connective tissue. Any thoughts on this?
I can share that's a particular movement or direction that libraries are taking across the country. And at the state level, in terms of what's happening with the state library system, it's one that they're really exploring. So there'll be more that comes to you in terms of thoughts on that vision and aspiration from others as well.
Good. So we are not siloed, we are not alone, in that this is something many people are dealing with.
I do want to say that when we have the book sales, we have a fair number of college students who come for recreational reading as a release from what they're doing up at the college. So
Yeah, that's wonderful. That's great. Okay, so maybe, and we can be, I think the library can try and be more intentional in planning programs that would attract college students, and hopefully if and when we are able to hire someone new, that'll be something that they focus on. Okay, so the final part of these focus groups was specific feedback for me, or specific responses to library programs or services. I'm going to share the 4 big takeaways that I had from this part of the focus group. I'll go through them kind of quickly. Then there'll be an opportunity for you to give me more advice, and then I'll talk really briefly about the renovation expansion, and then the rest of the time we can chat about whatever you like. Okay, so One thing I heard really loud and clear was that Middlebury really loves books a lot. Participants were really eager to express their appreciation for the circulating collection and the physical circulating collection specifically. I know that we are circulating more downloadable ebooks and audiobooks every year, because we have statistics that tell me that. But what I think you all told me, or what I heard anyways, is that Middlebury wants ebooks and audiobooks as a supplement to the physical collection, not a replacement. I couldn't agree more. I love physical books. I think there's an intrinsic value in the experience of picking one up and reading one. I feel very confident in saying that physical books aren't going anywhere anytime soon. I think that's true in public libraries across the country, certainly true here in Middlebury. Okay, I also learned that I need to really step up my game in terms of communicating everything that the library has and does. No one said these exact words, you need to increase communication, but it became really abundantly clear to me a couple of times during these focus groups. Someone would say, I really wish that the library had XYZ, whatever it is. You know, we could really use that here. I would love to check that out. And I'd be thinking, we have that already, it's right upstairs, or we just had that program 2 weeks ago, I wish you'd known. And after it happened enough, I sort of realized there's a pattern here. That pattern is that we have all these great resources and services, but they're probably being underutilized because we are not promoting them effectively. And that's something that I'll be working on over the coming year. This we touched on earlier, but it bears repeating because it came up again in a big way during this part of the focus groups. The library is really an important part of people's social lives. What I took away from this is really that Middlebury sees and uses the library as a community center. That's not a unique model. I think it's a growing trend in libraries that we fulfill both roles. And so we'll just keep looking for new ways to respect and support that role. And I love this slide. I really love this because it makes me feel like Middlebury is ready for and open to bold action at the library. I really think after hearing from so many people in these focus groups that Middlebury gets libraries. What I mean by that is no one said to me, I think libraries are about books and checking out books, and that's what you should stick to. Because libraries are so much more than that, and we do so much more, as we've been talking about this entire program. Middlebury, I think, really has an appreciation for this evolving role of libraries, and is ready to think about what they want from their library in the future. And it's just really exciting for me, and I feel very grateful that I get to be a part of a library that has that kind of community support. Anything else that you want me to know about the library, about the community? Specific feedback? Catch-all for anything you might be thinking. Okay. All right, planning for the future. We didn't ask about the renovation expansion directly during these focus groups. Like I kind of said earlier, these focus groups were about the community and community goals and how the library can support the community in pursuing those goals. But people did want to talk about the renovation and expansion, and I'm glad that they shared their thoughts because I learned a lot. I was really encouraged to hear that most focus group participants did favor some kind of capital improvement at the library. Most participants felt that some kind of renovation was necessary for the library to continue to grow and fulfill its mission. I think everyone probably already knows that there was a building committee that, of whom we have at least 2 members here tonight. I don't know if there's anyone else. But that was tasked with conducting a feasibility study and working with the architects Gossens Bachman to develop some plans. And what we learned from that body of work, which is really exciting, is that we can build, we can pursue an expansion and a renovation on this site that addresses all of the library's structural concerns and meets all of our needs for the future, which is great. And of course, a project that checks off every single box of what we want comes with an accordingly high price tag. And I think what I learned in these focus groups is that Middlebury residents find the projected price tag kind of unpalatable at this point, and that they felt that they hadn't had ample opportunity to participate in the process and to give their input and have their voice heard. So that's really valuable for me to know. It's really valuable for the trustees to know, and it's certainly gonna influence how we move forward. So, speaking of moving forward, we just finished the Tell Me Tour. The next step, I think, is to launch the Tell Me More Tour. Over the next, I don't know quite how long, 6 months or so, I'll be reaching out and re-engaging with the community to talk more specifically about the renovation, to start refining our priorities. What are the things that we absolutely have to achieve with a renovation or expansion? And trying to get a sense of what scale project would be palatable and a good fit for Middlebury. We'll have open meetings here. I'll do more focus groups since that seemed to be a good fit. Hopefully at some point we'll have some kind of survey. I'll set up a booth outside schools. However I can reach all of you, we will be doing that. And then after we've gathered more information, the board will make a decision based on what we've learned about how to move forward with a conceptual design phase that really allows for robust community input. So I would love to hear if anyone has ideas at the outset of planning this next phase of ways that I can make this as inclusive a process as possible. Because I want to make sure everyone feels that they were heard, and not feels that they were heard. I want to make sure everyone is heard. Or any thoughts on anything that we talked about today, because that's officially the last slide. So.
Well, I'd just like to say, based on direct experience, no matter how many forums you have, or community meetings, no matter how much you put out in the newspaper and on the website, you're always going to have people who will say, I wasn't consulted, I didn't have a role in the planning, I feel uninformed. Just to, I'm sure you already know that. It comes with developing any project of this size.
But it's good to hear again. I mean, we'll try as hard as we can to reach everyone, and we'll just move forward knowing that you can never really reach everyone.
Yeah, I really want to say amen to that. My experience of planning is that until you actually got a plan out there for people to look at, they will say they were never consulted. Both John and I were on the building committee, would say we consulted all over the place.
Right.
Now, we didn't consult absolutely every single person face to face, but there was plenty of consultation to get us the same contour of requirements that you've come up with your group. And I think if you go back to another group, you'll get the same contour because it's the realistic look at how the library needs to develop. How you squeeze that into a budget and squeeze that into a building is a big problem, but nevertheless, these are the things that people want. And so you can't turn around and say, but you didn't consult me. We consult you about the wants. I think what they object to is you didn't consult me about how much it was going to cost. Yeah, well, that's true. We didn't do that.
Well, I think you're completely right, and you've done the heavy lifting and you've put the plan out there, and so now people are starting to sit up and say, oh, now I'm hooked and I'm interested, and now we can kind of capitalize on that and move forward.
Nothing will elicit a greater response than an actual physical model in the back window.
Okay. Getting a 3D model out there, Victoria.
However, I don't, not just this project, but in other times, it often feels by the time there's been public opportunity, you feel like it's the final design is already there. There's not really an opportunity to have changes come.
Feels like a done deal.
Yeah, it feels like a done deal. So I think participation in not just one model, but alternatives or.
So, presenting alternative options.
Yeah,
Okay.
or just to really allow changes to happen based on, I mean, yes, you need a visual or a model or something to build off of, but you gotta really make sure it's not a done deal.
Okay.
I think those of us how many of us have participated in the park planning the meetings about the Triangle Park and Lazarus Park. And we had an opportunity to critique several times what the landscape designer and the town had done. What's amusing to me is that when they don't take my suggestions, then I think to myself, why is this a done deal? But I think that's inevitable. We have an opportunity to give suggestions. There is a price tag. There's the reality of what V-Trans will do and what the town can do with materials and all that. And yet I feel for this park, much more so than the municipal building, which we all complained about because somehow too much happened without our input. Well, it took 25 years. There was a lot of input.
Yeah.
But I think it was really helpful to have that park and have those meetings, even though they aren't going to do what I really wanted, and have a splash pool in the middle of it with children, which the parents said they don't want. They're dirty. Anyway, just so that we have public meetings that people will come to. And if they don't come, then that's tough because they didn't come and speak out. That's a big piece of it, I think. for the next-
I would say, one of the things that Dana did with these Tell Me tours, which I would strongly recommend for Tell Me More, is we went to the people. We went to people's homes, we went to Eastview, because some people have a hard time coming here. You have your sweats on, you're having a glass of wine, you don't wanna go out, But by going to people, I think it made a tremendous difference. We went to the teen center. We didn't ask the teens to come here. We went out, in a million different places to get people's opinions. It was very proactive. And I think asking people to come and you're gonna get, you're not gonna get the true flavor of
Yeah.
what people are saying.
But we couldn't have gone out to people with the park program in the same way. We can with a few models or whatever we end up, that we need to present.
Yeah, I think that really helped.
Yeah, I just wanted to add in terms of, the comment of that's way too much money, whatever, the more participation that you get, what could very well happen is everyone comes back and says, actually, that's a realistic figure. In other words, and will be more part of it. I think there's that huge figure and then, but I didn't get to see anything, do anything. So the more people you reach, because in fact, if you're you don't want to put money that's just going to go down the drain, so it may be to really do an adequate, decent job for the future. Guess what, folks? It's going to be expensive. I mean, rather than just the Band-Aid. I would rather spend a lot of money than money that's just fixing up so we can keep going. But the more participation, then people will feel like, wow, it seemed like so much. But now I realize, we're not talking an excessive library. We're just talking about a well-functioning library.
Right. So including education is a big part of this, letting people know
All the way
this
through.
is what you're getting and this is, okay. Yeah. John?
Well, picking up on what Susan said, one thing that we didn't point out when we were talking about why we wanted to do what was envisioned was the mistake that was made back in 1988 when they built the existing addition.
That we're in.
Where we're sitting. We're sitting and it's above us, right? It's
Yeah.
got the bowed window and all that. And it is almost impossible to use these spaces in a different way than they were originally planned for engineering reasons, ceiling heights, etc. I don't want to go into the details. But that's a very realistic example of why spending too little could be a problem. I just want to add one other thing that's not on that topic.
Yeah.
I think we may be underutilizing our email list.
Okay.
Why shouldn't there be simply once a week, let's say, a schedule that's nothing more than a schedule with maybe a sentence of description under what's happening at the library
Correct.
next week, right? I mean,
Yeah.
not that there aren't other ways for people to find that out, but since it doesn't cost anything to send it out to the people on the list already, and we can offer a place right at the circulation desk for people to sign up to get on the list.
Yeah, I think that ties in perfectly with needing to be doing more outreach and
Yeah.
advertising and communication.
Yeah.
Lori?
The same way, if there was a column for the library in the Indy, it would be wonderful, because they have lots of different people writing columns, and why not a column for the library?
Correct.
Or
I agree.
continual reports, the way we get them about the construction project in town.
From Jim. Yeah, those are wonderful.
Very effective.
Yeah, I agree. That's a great model for me to
I
look at.
think your slide, your presentation is well done. It conveys, A, that you really are listening, and B, is very informative about what libraries are now compared to your grandmother days.
Oh, thank you, Robert. I really appreciate that.
I think you did a great job with this, and a lot of your conclusions match what the town planning process came up with when we did that, including the community interaction part.
Right, you and I had talked about that a little bit a while ago, yeah.
Yeah, but when you ask people what they want, you're gonna get the pie in the sky dreams.
Right.
And that's why the budget gets so high.
Mhm.
So in this next phase, are you gonna find a way to make people think more about limits and about not duplicating what other venues can do? Then?
Yeah, I think the next phase of this is refining our priorities and somehow trying to get a sense of cost and, okay, well, maybe we can do 20 priorities for the 9.6 million, and maybe we can do 10 for 7, and maybe we can do something in between, you know. I don't have those numbers, but I think that the next phase has to start putting something like that on the table for people to respond to. Yeah. All right, well, we're just about at the end.
Yeah, I've got one more point. 2.5 years ago, when I went to the first meeting and we walked around the library and were shown the different parts of the library and what was needed and why, we were talking about makerspace. I'd never heard of a makerspace, and so this was new and different. This was 2.5 years ago, I think. And now the Hannaford Center has come up with that. So, you know, that's something, we basically don't have to come up with space for makerspace. We have other space needs, but that's actually really encouraging, because I think the need for makerspace got heard, and thank goodness Hannaford came through with that. Maybe some of you know more about that, but that's been major in my historical thinking as a member of the board. I'm really thankful for that.
Well, let me pose a question to all of you to think about, okay? One of the substantial expenses in the proposal is to build a new and somewhat larger community room, okay?
Yeah.
Now, compared to what the community rooms that were available 10 years ago, there are more available now, right?
Oh, you mean in the town?
In the town, right? There's one out at the EMS place, out near the hospital. The 2 elderly care places have meeting spaces. Congregational Church has a new one. I'm sure there are others. You know, we like to have a big meeting space. We like to be this, but it costs a bunch of money, right? And it means that you have to have different entrances because you're using it different times of day, toilets that are convenient, blah, blah, blah. So it isn't merely square footage, it's what you have to do to the design. You might think about that, and if you have opinions, let us know.
How often is this space used beyond its capacity? I mean,
Frequently, but I don't have the
literally
exact
can't fit any more
number.
people. I mean,
It's not only the capacity, it's actually the physical limitation of the space
Right,
itself,
but I
even if
mean-
there are few people there. My daughter was trying to show a film down here, and it's very difficult to do. The sight lines are terrible, for among other things.
Yes.
Yeah, but I mean, so
Yeah,
do,
I would say
I'm
a
just
couple
wondering, do we
times-
really need, given that there are other places now in town, do we really need a bigger
Well, she-
community room? I mean, how often is this inadequate?
Well, she showed the last.
Just space-wise,
She
not.
showed her last film at the
Are
Congregational
they
Church,
free?
and I had to look around the pillar all the time to find out where it was. I want to check out those spaces.
Yeah. I think it's a great question, and that's one that we'll definitely be delving into.
I have a
demographic
that is.
Okay, Kurt, last thing, and then we're gonna wrap up, so I wanna be respectful.
Yeah, I was just thinking, sort of returning to the idea of the cost, and I
Mhm.
think educating about what that cost is, because I frankly find it totally reasonable
Mhm.
and a low cost for what we're expecting and what we want as a community. We And when I say we, there's the caveat that the college has contributed substantially to a number of these projects that we've benefited from as a community. And I'm sort of speaking as an alum, sort of as an employee here, sort of as a citizen of Middlebury. We ask a lot. We say it costs too much. We have a $16 million bridge, multi-million-dollar fire station, new town offices, new gym. We as taxpayers have not really contributed that full ticket on any of those projects. And the college gets what the college gets. You know, they're definitely getting benefit out of what they're contributing to. I would think a 21st century library at the heart of downtown, at the heart of our community, would get support from the college. And I think it's a small cost for what we get in the heart of our town. So I think in a way that I'd much rather be paying taxes for something like this than other things. And when we have a design, like somebody sort of referenced that, informing people that's the cost of doing business. A proposed new school when Mount Abe was looking at, I think, $30 million.
Right.
Commercial construction is expensive.
Yeah.
But you get what you pay for, and I don't want a Band-Aid applied here. I'd like to see a library that's fit for the next 50 years, where we're not talking about tearing down a 1980s edition because we did the wrong thing in 2019.
I think that's incredibly well said, and I'm having a vision right now of a poster with your face and a word bubble. It just says all of that. Okay, so on that note, thank you everyone so much for coming and participating. It's incredibly helpful for me. And I have cards over here. You all know where you can find me, but if you want my phone number and email, grab it. Thank you.